Welcome to State of the State. I'm Darlene DeRezzo, and I'm in conversation with Jessica Drew Day. She is a lifelong Rhode Islander and newly elected to as the chairwoman of the South Kingstown Republican Town Committee. Welcome.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, Jessica's here to give us a civics lesson, or to teach us about civic involvement.
Yes.
Correct? Okay, so tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a small business owner. I own Daylight Films and Video Production here in Rhode Island for 23 years. I'm a mom and a wife, and we've done films and television commercials and weddings and events, primarily weddings and events. And when COVID hit, I was sitting around and I had extra time on my hands. Mm-hmm. So I decided, hey, why don't I look at the bills and see what they're doing at the State House? Mm-hmm. And that's when I decided to get involved and start reading the bills.
Let me ask, so prior to that, had you had much experience with local government or state government?
None.
Other than voting?
Other than voting.
Okay.
I always voted.
Okay.
I was like most Rhode Islanders, where I knew about national news and what was happening on the national political arena, but I didn't know what was happening locally at our state house level, who my rep was, Senate. Didn't even really quite understand. I knew how bills worked, but I didn't understand how it all happened. And city level as well, I was like, City Hall, I knew it was there because I paid my taxes there, but other than that, I really didn't know much.
Okay, so where should we start? Should we start with what is a bill?
So personally, I think everyone should start on the Secretary of State website.
Okay.
Look up your voting record, and the Secretary of State website is sos.ri.gov, G-O-V. Look up your voting record, and when you do that, it's going to tell you who your representative is, who your senator is, and all the way up to federal, governor, and so forth. And then
why is it important to know who is your representative and who is your senator all the way up?
So you asked about the bills. Mm-hmm. So after you find out who your representative is, then you can look up the bills that they're writing and submitting and get a feel for what's happening in your town and see, is your representative representing you and your values? And so it will lead you to, like I said, the next step of looking up bills.
Okay.
So that's why I feel like the first step is to find out who your rep is, who your senator is, and then when you go to look up the bills, you can look their names up. And then when you go to look up the bills, you're going to go to the Rhode Island Legislative website. And that's rilegislator.gov. And when you get there, you're going to be like, it's word salad. There's so much happening on that website, and it is a little difficult to navigate. Mm-hmm. So I direct everyone there so that you can look it up and say and start getting familiar. Start clicking on the buttons and seeing where they lead you. But at the very top bar, you can look up your legislator. It will give you their phone number, their address, and how to get in touch with them by email or phone number. Then you can go to bills, and when you pull that up, it's going to have a whole long list, and at the top it's going to say bill history. You want to click on that, and then you can look up every representative and senator will be listed down. They don't make it easy.
Okay.
But there is good news, because there's an easier website I have found to look up bills, and you go to BillTrack50.com. And when you go to BillTrack50, you can look up your legislator, and again, it will give you information about how to get in touch with them, their email, and it will give you a rundown of every bill. It's so nice because when you click on it, it will tell you where it is. If on a life of a bill, if it's in committee, what that means is that they're hearing about the bill.
Oh, yeah, actually, so let's talk about that. Where does the bill start?
So the bill starts with the legislator, the senator or rep. They write the bill. Then they have to get
Based on what the community needs.
or their agenda.
Or their, okay.
Or their agenda, what they want to do in Rhode Island. And just to give you an idea, I just texted Mike Chippendale, and he said Mike Chippendale is the minority leader for our Republican party in the House. He's a House representative Republican leader. And I texted him and asked him how many bills are put forth. He said, well, he won't know until next Tuesday, but it is well over 4,000 bills that the Democrats have put in. The Republicans have put in around 100. So you have 4,000 bills on the Democrat side to read and around 100 on the Republican. Now, we all know we're in a Democrat state. Majority up at the State House are Democrats. So, of course, you're going to have more bills, but over 4,000 bills
That
to read.
sounds daunting. It sounds incredibly difficult and challenging to go through all that. How many bills are at your town or city level? I mean, are these bills that are going to affect you and your town, or people across the state? How do we know?
So when you read the bills, that's why I going back to the beginning, it's easiest if you look up your representative and start there and look at those bills that he or she has written. And then I would look up the bills that your senator has written and start there. And then it will bring you forth. You'll get a feel for their agenda, whether you agree with that or not. And if you're for a bill, you can go to committee and you can actually speak at the State House and say, I'm here to support this bill. I think this is a wonderful bill and we should move this forward. Or I believe this bill is terrible. And whatever reasons that you feel, we're all citizens of Rhode Island, we're all taxpayers, and we have that right, and we can go and speak at the State House. Or you can send an email to your legislator. And after running, I ran this past election for the House District 33 in South Kingstown, Narragansett. I met a lot of legislators, and they all said that they really listen when it's one of their voters that's calling or emailing. So that's why it's a good place to start, because then you're emailing your representative or your senator saying, hey, you're doing a great job, I agree with this bill, or no, this bill is terrible, please remove it. I oppose this for XYZ reason. It brings the power back to the people. I think, and what I've witnessed at the State House, I've gone and spoke on bills, is that the regular people aren't there. There's a lot of lobbyists. There's a lot of people that are, going to benefit from a bill being passed, whether it is good for the taxpayer or not. And when I go, I'm looking around, there's no one there. So, I think taxpayers, we have to get involved. We have to start reading these bills and seeing, what's happening at the State House. So important, and we all know there's COVID. We have
before
COVID
you go,
money.
Okay, yeah, before you go there, so you started to talk about the life of the bill.
Okay.
Right. So you said it started at committee.
Starts in committee.
Okay.
Yep.
And you said it goes to.
So let's say the committee vote, and they say we're going to pass this bill, and it's going to go to.
And the committee is in the town or the city?
No, the committee's at the State House.
Okay.
They have, so if it's a House representative bill that's written, it goes through a representative, the House committee. For instance, if it's an education bill, it goes through an education committee. And then when they pass it and say, yes, we're going to put this out to a floor vote. So then the House of Representatives vote whether they're going to pass the bill or not pass the bill. And then what it does, it goes through the Senate. And now on the Senate side, same thing happens. If they have a Senate bill, it goes through the Senate committees, And then after it passes, they say, okay, we're going to put this out for a vote. It goes out to the floor. They call it the floor. And they vote and say yes or no. And then it goes to the House. I believe that's how it works. And then the governor can either veto the bill, which says a no-go, or sign it and say, yes, this is now a law. And that's how it becomes a law.
And that's interesting that he has that power, or she, once it's gone through this whole process, and if it's been approved, he can still say no.
Right, he can still say no. And then if he says no, it can go back through the process. I believe it just has to have more of a vote for it to become law and go around the governor. So let's say right now we have McKee, who's a Democrat. Most bills that get passed are Democrat bills, so most of the time we hear him signing them into law. But let's say we had a Republican governor. It would at least put a little power back to the people, because I believe when they write some of these bills, as you're reading them and as you're starting to find out for yourself, you're going to say, oh, I really kind of like this bill. But I encourage you to keep reading, because what they do is the first part of a bill sounds really good, and then in the bottom they add in other things. And you're like, ooh, well, I agree with all of this, but this I don't. And I did bring a bill with me just to remind myself, but at the top of every bill, there's a number.
Okay.
And let's say you go into the sea of bills, and like I said, there's so many. You can write down the numbers, and then there's a spot on the Rhode Island legislative website to say, I want to follow this bill. You can put that bill number in, and they will email you when it comes up for committee, when it goes out to floor votes, so that you can have some power in emailing the legislators, emailing people and say, other legislators too. Maybe it goes out for a floor vote and you're still not agreeing with the bill. You can email the rest of the body, they call it, and say, hey, I don't agree with this bill. And maybe get other people to write too, tell other people and say, do you agree with this bill? You don't either? Can you write an email or a phone call? And hopefully we can stop some of the bills that are coming through and have some power back to the people, because, I feel, I'm a Republican. We know where the Republicans stand in this state. It's no lie. But, it's no surprise that, we just don't have any power. But if the people speak, I feel that we can start to move and keep an eye on what's happening and say, we're watching you. You can't just keep passing bills. For instance, I had no idea about the straw bill until I went and I bought a coffee through Dunkin' Donuts, and I'm looking at my Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and I'm like, well, where's my straw? So I go back in, I'm like, where's my straw? And they said, oh, it's a law now. You have to ask for a straw. And I'm like, bought a plastic cup with a plastic cover, and I have to ask for the straw to drink it? I was like, to me, that's a silly law. So, and then they say, if you don't ask and they don't give it, it's a big fine for the restaurant. So I was like, really? That's the bill that they put in? We're in COVID disarray, and that's what they're worried about? So for me, it just didn't make any sense.
Okay. Now, I interrupted you. You said something about COVID bills or COVID money?
COVID money.
Okay.
That's right. So during the state of emergency, the reason I'm pretty sure we're still in state of emergency here in Rhode Island until April. The reason it will end in April is because Biden said it will end in April. We can no longer put in for a state of emergency. But every day that we're in state of an emergency, the federal government is sending Rhode Island money. I believe it's $1 million a day. So we have a surplus on our budget. Not because they've saved money at the state house level. If anything, they're spending more. And I believe that we, the people, the taxpayers, should be paying attention. How is that money being spent? Is that money being spent on programs that are going to be sustainable in the future? Or maybe saving us money in the future so that we can have a sustainable economy? So I'm just encouraging people. Pay attention to how that money's being spent. And if you see something come through that you're like, that don't sound right, write an email and make a phone call.
Okay. What are you concerned about now in your town, locally?
Okay. So in our town locally, right now, and this is happening in all the cities.
Okay.
Okay. So they have given, we know how our schools are. They haven't been maintained. So many of the schools need upgrades, roofs, our public schools, they need attention. This is not any news or lie, but I am encouraging people to go to the city committee meetings, watch how they're spending the money for the schools. In South Kingstown, we have a school bond coming up. They're going to be asking us for $150 million school bonds. But the public schools, we know the enrollments are going down in many cities.
How do we know this?
Because we can see it. So, for instance, in Narragansett, they said the incoming class to kindergarten has 50 students. We have 120 graduating.
Okay.
So in South Kingstown, I was just looking at a projection someone sent to me this week, and they were saying projected now in 2023 that we were going to have 900 students in our high school. But enrollment today, we only have 707, and they want to spend a $150 million bond. It would be $120 million to build a new high school, and then the remainder would go to other projects to improve the conditions at the other school. I have no problem with building a school and investing money in our schools, but I feel that we should do it wisely and not quickly. I went to a meeting this past week, and the school committee, I understand they've been, going through the processes for many months, and the town council wanted to make a vote to put this bond issue out for a special election. And the school committee was upset that they didn't move it forward, but there's still questions. So I was happy that the town council said, let's wait, we have a few more questions. There was something that came up. They said they couldn't tell us. It wasn't public information yet, so I don't know. I'm anxious to hear what that will be next week. But $120 million is a lot of money. And they're saying that the state is going to reimburse 40%, but they're not giving it on the upfront. So they're not giving 40% of $120 million. Mm-hmm. The taxpayers are still on the hook for that. The 40% comes in with the interest. So wow. They're going to help with the interest payments through the life of the bond. So it's still going to cost us $120 million. Mm-hmm. And we already are in South Kingstown. We already spent $28,000. It's like, it varies. I've heard different numbers, but $25,000 to $28,000 per student to go to school in South Kingstown.
Per year? Or? Per
year.
Okay.
So we know Hendricken, for instance, a mm-hmm. private school, to send your son or daughter, son to Hendricken, it's $17,000 a year. So
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm like
the tuition, yeah.
So school choice. We could give a voucher to the parents and have them send the kids to a private school or another school. But I do understand why the city people want a high school. Mm-hmm. I went to public high school. I get that, mm-hmm. but the money has to be invested wisely. That's all we're asking. And it's our money. It's not free money. That's the other thing. Just because it comes from the state or federal level, it's still, whether it's coming out the front of your pocket or the back of the pocket, it's still taxpayer money. So we have to be wise. And that's all we're asking, is that our legislators are wise with the money. Mm-hmm. And, I was never interested in politics. I really wasn't until I started. I was like, I'd hear the stories and I'd be like, well, however they choose on that bill, I could see both sides of it. Let them figure it out. But now it's like I read these bills and I'm like, I can't even believe that they're writing this. This is so horrible. Mm-hmm. So I really do encourage people to take the time, whether it's in your city level or at the state level. And if anyone is interested or has a question, they're welcome to email me at jessicadrewday.com. On my website, there's information on how to get in touch with me. And I'm happy to even have a class. I know everything I'm saying has been verbal, but I'm happy to have a class on how to use these websites.
So you got involved during COVID, sat on your computer, started looking things up. Then you actually ran, right? So if someone's interested in running for House District Representative, as you did, or something else, tell us about that process for you and how someone else might get involved.
Sure. Hold on one sec. So you can, I would recommend to go to the Board of Elections, the BOE. And the Board of Elections, they'll help you with your paperwork. You know, when I first got involved, I had no idea how much was involved in running.
Would you have done it?
Yes.
Had you known, you would have done it anyway.
I would have done it.
Okay.
But it's a lot. There's a lot of paperwork. There's deadlines to things. You, once you file your paperwork, you have 30 days from then. You have to fill out an Ethics Commission form and file with the Ethics Commission. About your background, your business dealings, you know, property you own, stocks you own. I was like, wow. So then after you file that and you have to declare that you're going to run at your city hall.
Okay.
And then you have to go and collect signatures. And actually, the Democrats put in a bill just recently that they want to up the amount of signatures that you have to get. So I thought that was, you know, interesting that.
So the signatures are to support you.
To support you.
Okay. So community members who are interested in having you run.
Right. For instance, I ran for a rep seat. I had to have a minimum of 50 people in my district sign that they support me running. They're like a nomination. They're not voting for me. They're not saying that they're going to vote for me, but they're saying, hey, you have the right to run. I'm a registered. They have to be a registered voter.
Okay, so they're
in your district.
They're signing off saying you have the right to run.
Yeah.
Not that they're going to support you.
Right.
Got
Not
it.
that they're going to support you, but that they're saying, okay, you want to run, here, you have the right to run. So as a rep, you would need 50. As a senator, you would need 100. The bill that was just put forward, I was reading it this week while I was reading. They want to change it to reps have to have 100. If you're running for a Senate seat, you would need 150. And it was a little tricky when I first started running and I was getting my signatures because they did a redistricting of all the districts. So when I saw it, the map wasn't quite clear. So like if I have one side of the street and I didn't have the right side, if I got someone on the right side to sign my paper, they don't count that signature. So I collected over 100 signatures just to make sure that I had my 50 to get on the ballot.
Wow.
If you don't get those signatures, then you can't be on the ballot.
Okay.
So then you, and then every quarter or so, they send you a thing. You have to file a treasury report with the Board of Elections saying who contributed to your account for a donation and how you spent the money.
Wow. And this is how far ahead of the actual election that you're working on all this?
So before the election, it's like every 3 months you have to do the treasury report. But in the middle of the heat of the election, which is like October, they give you like, you have to file it. You have, it's like 3 weeks of paperwork, 3-week time span, and then you get 1 day to file. It's like the cutoff date was like October 11th, for instance, and the due date for the report was October 12th. So like, banks sometimes aren't even like up to date. You know, when you go online, it says pending, but it hasn't quite posted yet. So it was a little daunting. And then 7 days before the election, you file again. So it's like, oh my gosh. So like trying to make all those deadlines in the heat of campaigning. It's October, so that's always a busy time here in New England anyways, because it's fall and everyone has things in fall, whether it's, taking the kids to a maze or going to a wedding, and I'm a wedding videographer, so like that's a busy time of year for me anyways. So that was a challenge, but we did it.
Okay, so you've traveled all over the state filming commercials, weddings, etc.
Yes.
Around the state, what would you like to see change or improve?
So I was happy when the tolls for the trucks, when that stopped. I'd like to see the gantries taken down. The gantries, the toll gantries. That is the potholes, the road work. Like I don't understand. We're such a small state. There's really no reason for us to have a pothole anywhere. So I wish, if I had a wish list, I would just wish that we had nice roads. The education is another thing. Our children go to school in public schools, deserve a good education, learning math, English, science, history. They're trying to bring a lot of new agenda to that, and they.
So tell our viewers how that agenda gets into the schools and about the funding for that and what they might do to get involved.
So it was there, but what happened was when Biden became president, he signed an executive order that said if the states don't follow their education curriculums, then they won't get funding. So
was this previous?
This is when right when he came into office.
Okay, so did states have the option to not follow this curriculum?
So it was interesting before that. If the school boards get in, even from the state level, they get in the curriculum, the school committees can go through and say, okay, well, we're not going to teach this book and start taking we want to teach this, but not that. What's happened is the funding is just coming down from Biden, so it's like we just.
So the school boards don't have a choice, is what you're saying. So.
From what I've seen, if they do have the choice, they're not taking the choice.
Okay.
Because it's in our curriculum. A lot of it comes down from the Rhode Island Department of Education. So they're coming in, and the teacher will be teaching a class, and then they'll have a special speaker come in. This is what teachers have told me happens. They have a special speaker from RIDE come in, read a story, and then they leave, and then the kids are asking questions about the story. It might have, something in it like a little boy kisses another little boy, and then they're like, the kids have questions about that because they're only in 3rd or 4th grade, and they're still playing outside with sticks and playing on slides and enjoying Barbies and GI Joes, and they're not looking at kissing someone else. So what is this about? And then the teacher's left well,
it doesn't sound like the teacher gets the support then to answer any questions.
Right.
And where would that funding come from?
Exactly.
Okay.
So I've asked teachers about that. You weren't trained in how to answer a question if the person from RIDE just reads this book and leaves, and they're like, no, we basically redirect the class after that happens. So, and then I see, I've heard of, there are, they have a lot of graphic novels now for the children that will have depictions in it, and it's okay. So there's a law, actually, Sherry Roberts put it forward, that says that they cannot, if a minor, a child under 18, should not have any graphic any explicit sexual, basically pornography in the classroom.
Thank you for this lesson on how we can get involved.
Yes.
Okay.